Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Tea Tuesday. I'd like to thank Patty with Life with Patty and Kathy of Kathy's Favorite Things. This is an open collaboration. You can come and go as you please. I'll put everything down in the hashtag below. What you want to do is put hashtag Tea Tuesday. It can be formal tea, it can be informal tea, it can be hot tea, it can be cold tea. Whatever you would like. You can read, you can do a craft, you can just show pictures, whatever you want to do. Just join in with us ladies and gents and have a lot of fun. So let's get started. Today I'm having some leftover sweet tea from Mickey D's. Oh yes, tastes so good. But before I start, I want you to know I went strawberry picking this morning. It's 9:15. I was at the field very early, like 7:30. And I picked a big old flat of strawberries. And I'll insert a picture at the end. And there'll be a video coming up on what I'm going to do with the strawberries. So I just thought I would share that with you. So I'm kind of a hot, sweaty mess. When I left, it was 59 degrees this morning. And it is 72 right now. It's supposed to get in the high 80s and be humid. Yeah. So we'll probably have to turn the air conditioners on today, which I'd rather not, but if we have to, we have to. So back to hello, Mr. Twiddle. Don't we all like Mr. Twiddle? So let's get going. Mr. Twiddle fetches the fish. Hope it's not like the last one. Mr. Twiddle, the fish boy hasn't been with the fish, called Mrs. Twiddle. Just put on your coat and go fetch it for me, will you? And you might get the newspaper at the same time because he hasn't been left this morning. Mr. Twiddle jumped up at once. He had missed the newspaper very much and he was pleased to go fetch it. Yes, he would fetch the fish as well. It was on the way to the newspaper shop. He went off humming, looking forward to a nice lazy morning with a newspaper when he got back. Ah, there was nothing like a good fat newspaper and a nice brown pipe. Mrs. Twiddle would be pleased with him for fetching the fish and would let him read in peace. He came to the fish shop and asked the man, "Can I have Mrs. Twiddle's fish, please?" he asked. "It hasn't come." "Certainly, sir, certainly," said the man. 5 herring, isn't it? Here they are." He took a newspaper, slapped the 5 slippery herring into it, rolled them up. He gave the parcel to Mr. Twiddle, who slipped it under his arm. He set off to the newspaper shop. "The newspaper, please," he said to the man. "You forgot to leave it this morning." "Sorry, sir," said the man, and he rolled up Mr. Twiddle's newspaper and gave it to him. Mr. Twiddle put it under his other arm. Then he set off home, whistling softly. Ah, it would be nice to sit down in the armchair by the fire, unfold the newspaper, light his pipe, and puff away in peace. Whistled Mrs. Twiddle, cooked herring, and he smelt it, the delicious smell of them. He reached home and slapped down the newspaper on the table. "Fish, Mrs. Twiddle, fish," he said. "Good fat herring for dinner." Ooh, so far so good for Mr. Twiddle. He hadn't noticed that he had put the newspaper on the table and he had put the parcel of fish on his chair. The fish was wrapped up in the newspaper too, so it wasn't a difficult mistake to make. Mr. Twiddle went to get his pipe. Mrs. Twiddle unfolded the newspaper he had put on the table. She looked astonished and then called to Mr. Twiddle, "Twiddle, what have you done with the fish? It isn't here." "Isn't there?" said Twiddle in alarm. "But it must be. I saw the man slap the herring into the paper myself." "Then they must have dropped out, Mr. Twiddle," said Mrs. Twiddle crossly. Just like you. You better go back and get more. Mr. Twiddle stared in dismay. But I want to read and smoke my pipe, he said. I'm tired. Well, sit down for 5 minutes and rest, said Mrs. Twiddle. Then you must go, or we will have nothing for dinner. Twiddle sighed. Something always seemed to go wrong. He looked for his newspaper. Ah, yes, he had put it in his armchair. The cat was there too, scraping hard at the paper. It could smell the fish in it. Of course, but Mr. Twiddle didn't know that. He thought it was just the newspaper and nothing else. Look at that cat, he said to his wife. I believe she's trying to open the newspaper and read it. Fiddlesticks, said Mrs. Twiddle snappily. Whatever will you say next? You'll tell me the canary wants to smoke your pipe. Mr. Twiddle lit his pipe. Then he looked up the newspaper from the chair and sat down. He shook out the paper, and out fell 5 slippery herrings, all down Mr. Twiddle's nice, clean waistcoat and trousers. Bless us all! What's this? Shouted Mr. Twiddle in a fright, jumping up. Mrs. Twiddle, there's something hiding in my newspaper. Big earwigs or something. Whoosh! They all jumped out at me. When I opened the paper, the cat jumped at the fish in delight. She sat down and began to eat. Mr. Twiddle beamed at her. Look at that now, he cried. The cat's attacking them. Clever creature. Mrs. Twiddle hurried in and gave a shout in dismay. It's the herring, she cried. Twiddle, are you mad? What have you given them to the cat for? Shoo, puss, shoo. The cat shooed. Mr. Twiddle looked foolish. Mrs. Twiddle picked up the herring, scolding all the while. Really? What shall I do with you, Twiddle? Given me your newspaper and tried to read the herring and then given them to the cat? Well, there must be one less for your dinner now, for the cat had one. I did not give them to the cat, said Mr. Twiddle crossly. You did, said Mrs. Twiddle. Didn't I see you beaming at the cat eating the herring when I came in? Well, said Mr. Twiddle, cheering up suddenly, I needn't go off to the fish shop again because the fish are found. So I can read my newspaper in peace. Where is it? Oh, I've torn it up to make newspaper to line the larder shelves, said Mrs. Twiddle. If you want to read it, you'll have to go and stand in the ladder and read the news on each shelf. Mr. Twiddle, that will teach you to give herring to the cat again. Poor Twiddle. He spent all the morning in the larder reading the news on the shelf, for Mrs. Twiddle had torn up the paper and spread it neatly there. He couldn't even have his pipe, for he wasn't allowed to smoke one in the larder. He really is the funniest old thing, isn't he? Well, there you go. We're going on to chapter 4 next week. So I hope you like Mr. Twiddle. I know I do, and there's a lot of other folks out there that like Mr. Twiddle as well. So I'm going to take another drink of my sweet tea. Oh, so good. Stay tuned for the pictures of the berries that I picked, and there'll be an upcoming video on what I'm doing with them. So if you'd like to join in on Tea Tuesday, everything will be in the description box below. Have a great day. God bless, and we will see you tomorrow for Grammy's DT meals and snacks. Have a great day. Bye now. Okay, guys, these are the strawberries I picked. I picked a flat of strawberries, and when I get home, I'll show you how I hull them, and I'll be making jam, and I don't know what else.